Today, on Be Something Wonderful, manifesting on a time crunch and deadline, the law of assumption. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, good morning and welcome back to the studios of Be Something Wonderful. Big video for you today. The question came up, Tom, what about manifesting on a time crunch or on a deadline? Because I know that I can apply the law of assumption and assume that I always manifest on a timeline, on a time crunch, and that on a timeline too, but on a time crunch or within a specific deadline, or that I always get it done. I can assume that, but that hasn't been my experience. The deadline would pass and then I would get more frustrated, more anxious, and that the project wouldn't get done on the time crunch. This is some of the questions that we had, and I want to talk about this because really what we're talking about is that you're never really manifesting anything in time or on a time crunch. This is the bigger message. It's not, yes, you could assume that you manifest everything on a deadline, on a time crunch, but then the deadline passes and you get more frustrated, so you're creating this idea. Remember, when you say, I assume that I manifest everything on a timeline, on a deadline, or on a time crunch, you're putting the time crunch there, you're putting the deadline there, you're creating a reality where you have to manifest by a certain deadline in a time crunch. And so you create the idea, right? What is the whole significance of a time crunch or deadline? That you don't get it done, that there's no time. Do you see? You're creating the reality that you don't have time to manifest it, that you can't manifest it in time. That's what you're saying. So we don't manifest anything in time or on a time crunch. You manifest everything now, in that only moment there is, here and now, where everything is already done, everything already exists. Creation is finished. The script is written, as A Course in Miracles says. And Neville Goddard says creation is finished. It's all there. You manifest everything now or not at all. And not at all is not an option because non-existence doesn't exist. So everything that happened or is happening or will happen is happening now. Do you see? The ideas of deadlines and time crunches are linear and limited assumptions that create a reality of running out of time. Hear this. Of manifestations and fulfillment of your wishes fulfilled taking time, and of manifesting in time where there's not enough time. That's really what you're doing, even when you assume that. I know it's better than assuming that you don't have enough time or that you can't manifest in a time crunch. But even the idea of saying I manifest in a time crunch, I always manifest in a time crunch, I always manifest within a deadline, even that creates the idea that you don't have enough time, that you're manifesting in time, that you're limited and restricted by time, that you're running out of time. So we're going to go beyond that today, and this is big. So the law of assumption, what you assume about yourself, others in the world, create it. All of it here and now. That's the basis of Neville Goddard's law of assumption and what other spiritual teachers talk about, right? Nothing exists in time. It exists in awareness. The awareness and assumption that you're already that person you desire to be, that you already have what you want to have, that you've already manifested that within a timeline or a time crunch. Nothing takes time, it takes awareness. It takes your assumption that you're already that person you want to be. It takes you being aware of already being and having all that you want to be and have. So even if you assume that I always manifest on a time crunch or on a deadline, I always manifest on a deadline, you're still putting the time crunch and deadline there. You're still assuming that manifesting what you want and desire takes time. It takes awareness. It doesn't take time. We've talked about that in a few videos now. You're making an assumption that you manifest, hear this, in linear time. You're just moving your focus to, you're making an assumption, yeah, I always manifest this in linear time. But you create that time. You create that there's not enough time. So that becomes your experience. You create the experience of running out of time. You create the experience of being in a time crunch. You create the experience of missing the deadline where your dreams and your wishes fulfilled are now dead. That's what deadline means. You miss the deadline, they're dead. I talked about that in earlier videos. I actually linked 2 related videos, and the first 2 videos are linked that talk about this and unpack this like never before. So I want to talk about this. In other words, you are creating the possibility of non-fulfillment in linear time. Right? Instead, assume and know this: I always manifest what I want and desire on time. Wow. Feel the difference, right? And so with the idea that I'm always manifesting in a time crunch, and I'm always manifesting on a deadline, right? I always manifest on a deadline. You're creating the possibility of not being able to do that. The possibility that you run out of time. The idea that there's a time crunch and there is a deadline. Instead, assume and know this: I always manifest what I want and desire on time. And that gets determined by you, and meaning it's timeless. It's not in time. It's not on a timeline, a deadline, a timeline or a deadline. It's not on a time crunch. This one assumption makes linear time and deadlines and time crunches irrelevant. Wow. It makes them irrelevant because it's always on time in that now moment. Think about it. When you manifest something, it's always on time. It's always now. Everything's always now. Now's perfect. Everybody has the same amount of time, and it's right now, this now moment, this eternal now present, this presence, this present reality, this eternal reality, this changeless, timeless reality is right now. And we all have the same amount of time. On time is now. That's what's so powerful about this assumption. Your wishes are not fulfilled in some place, in some time in the future, but always here and now and on time. Right? That's powerful. That's the true meaning of divine timing. Everything comes in divine timing. In other words, God doesn't know anything about time. God only knows now, here and now. Everything, everywhere, all at once, all fulfilled. The only one in ultimate reality. That's powerful, right? Your wishes are not fulfilled in some place or time in the future, but always here and now and always on time. That's divine timing. So remember, God knows nothing of linear time, deadlines, and time crunches. God only knows what's real or reality. And reality is here and now. It's the now moment. Linear time's an idea, right? That's not reality. That's not real, in other words. It's a real experience, but it's not reality. There's only now. Fulfillment, your wishes fulfilled, exist here and now or not at all. And we talked about this. Non-existence is impossible. Non-existence, it doesn't exist by definition. Therefore, non-fulfillment is impossible. There's only fulfillment. There's only now. Right? Deadline implies that there's some point in time where your wish is not fulfilled and where your desire is dead. Wow. And where non-fulfillment is possible. Wow. Hear it again. Right? A deadline or even a time crunch implies that there's some point in time where your wish is not fulfilled, possibly. Where your dream is dead, possibly. Where non-fulfillment is possible. And non-fulfillment is impossible. Non-existence is impossible. By definition, there's only fulfillment, there's only existence. Fulfillment and your wish fulfilled is wherever you are in your awareness of it. Wherever you are. And not just wherever you are, but whenever you are. There it is. So fulfillment of your wish fulfilled is wherever and whenever you are. The question is, where are you and when are you? Are you going to answer like Moses to God? Moses, Moses, here I am. Right? It's wherever and whenever you are. And why not be in the now moment declaring, here I am, fulfilled, completely fulfilled, right? Complete, healed, whole, healthy, wealthy, free, and in love. Wow. So Why can't I manifest on a deadline or a time crunch? How can I? How can I manifest on a deadline and time crunch? These are the questions. Jesus, your I am awareness, in other words, your imagination, as Neville Goddard calls it, gave us the formula in secret on how to do that. When he got those questions from his disciples, remember the questions weren't quite why can I manifest on a deadline or how can I? They were talking about some of the miracles that Jesus was performing. How come we couldn't do it? How come we couldn't perform that miracle? What's going on? And Jesus would say, because of your unbelief. Because you don't have the faith of a mustard seed. If you had the faith as a mustard seed or the size of a mustard seed, you would move mountains and mulberry trees. What was Jesus saying there? He wasn't talking about a small amount of faith. He was talking about absolute faith, absolute knowing, conviction. I am. It's timeless. In other words, when Jesus said move mountains and uproot mulberry trees, in other words, shift realities, collapse time and space, move timelines and deadlines, make time crunches irrelevant. Do you see? You determine it. You move the deadline. You move the timeline. The time crunch is gone. Every seed, every wish fulfilled, every imagined desire, remember, carries within it the absolute plan of fulfillment as a physical 3D manifested experience. Just like the mustard seed. That's the significance. Within that mustard seed is the entire plan of fulfillment. It will be a mustard tree. It will be a mustard plant. It's in that. It's the plan of fulfillment's in there, right? It's timeless. It's done. It's already there. So within your wish fulfilled is everything. As you persist in your imagined end of wish fulfilled, you rearrange time and space to fulfill the plan no matter what the deadline. Because the plan of fulfillment is within it, like the seed, like the faith of a mustard seed. You fulfill it, you move deadlines, you rearrange time and space. Right? And you fulfill that plan no matter what when you're in your imagined end, when you're in that timeless identity of knowing who you are. When your focus and awareness is on your self-concept as all that is, as source. Nothing can stop you. Right? This is powerful. When you assume, law of assumption, that I always manifest what I want and desire on time, you're performing a miracle. You step outside of linear time. You become timeless. A Course in Miracles says this. Remember, this is a channeled text through channeling Jesus Christ, right? So the miracle abolishes the need for lower order concerns. In other words, it abolishes the need for deadlines and time crunches. Do you see it? It abolishes the need for lower level concerns. The ordinary considerations of time and space do not apply. They do not apply. Course in Miracles is saying it here. The deadlines and time crunches don't apply. When you perform a miracle, this is what Jesus says through the channel text. I will rearrange both time and space to adjust to it. That's your I am awareness of being. I am. Your awareness of being saying, I will arrange time and space to adjust to that miracle. To adjust to that idea that your assumption is that I always manifest what I want on time. It's always perfect time. It's always unfolding perfectly. Then you rearrange everything. Two powerful demonstrations of this, which I linked the videos below so you can see the full videos on these, of the idea of rearranging time and space and deadlines. I talked about in older videos. Neville Goddard, I retold the story of Neville Goddard when he was looking for an apartment, right? And he had a certain rent in mind. Him and his wife had a certain lower rent in mind. And he rents the apartment and the rent's higher than what he expected to pay, that he imagined that he would pay. Right? He was imagining to pay that lower rent. And his wife said to him, even his wife turned on him and said, well, that's not very spiritual. That's not very powerful. Right? Because he's the guru. Neville, you're the guru of a lot of assumptions. So his wife said, what's up? How come we're paying a higher rent? I thought you could imagine this, right? And then there was another one where I talked about this this really spectacular shift in realities, where she reached out and sent me an email, and then I talked with her on Zoom later, where she was facing a deadline. She was going to go on a business trip, and she had to get this certain presentation completed, and she had not completed it yet. And there was resistance there, right? Thinking, oh, I'm not organized, I never get things done on time. She changed her assumption, right? So of course I get it always. It's done. I always get things done on time. And we're going to show what happened to that. But she moved to a timeline where it was done. She had no recollection of it. No recollection of ever doing it. But yet, when she got up in the morning in that new state of, you know what, everything works out. I always get things done on time. And she went in to start the project, knowing that would move her to flow through this project and get it done. But it turns out she found it, the exact project she needed, that she had completed 9 months before, but she has no recollection of it. Does not ever remember doing it, the exact project she needed. I want to talk about this today and more. Here's the situation with Neville, right? That in a video I go over it in detail. Him and his wife were looking for a place. Well, he found a place, but he had to pay more rent, right? So he paid more rent in September, paid more rent than he imagined in October, right? But kept imagining anyway, even after his wife said that. He didn't care. He kept imagining, right? And then he goes to pay the November rent. Remember, you're always in the now moment, right? He goes to pay the November rent, and the manager indicated that the rent was actually less than what he had paid. Wow. And it was exactly what Neville imagined. It was the ideal rent. And then the manager retroactively reduced his rent for September and October. By Neville imagining, right, those future frames, the faith of a mustard seed, imagining paying the ideal rent, right? That was his faith. That was what he was imagining. He moved to the reality where he actually only did pay his ideal rent, and because it was retroactive. So the effect was that September and October, he only really paid his ideal rent. And in the now moment, in November, he's paying his ideal rent. And in the future frames, he'll continue to pay that ideal rent. Right? Your assumption of wish fulfilled is timeless. It's always on time. Do you see how that all got retroactively adjusted? I did a powerful unpacking of this specific part of Neville's teachings. So you should check out the video in the link below. But this is what Neville says about that. Invisible states, when properly rearranged, right, will externalize what they imply. Right? The implication that I'm only paying that, I don't care. Remember, he followed the script. He kept paying whatever they were asking for, right? He didn't resist. Remember, all scripts are written. As he didn't resist from the now moment, he knew he was in the center of all of these scripts. In that moment, you're in the center of all possibilities. This frame exists in all your scripts. And as he persisted in that idea that, yeah, I know I'm going to pay the ideal rent. I'm paying the ideal rent. Doesn't matter what I'm paying them now. I'm paying the ideal rent. He moved, right? He's still here and now, but the horizontal past changed. It got retroactively reduced. So the effect was he only paid his ideal amount. He'll only pay his ideal amount. Invisible states, when properly rearranged, will externalize what they imply. For the potency of every imaginal act is in its implication. Neville got it. Invisible states, when properly rearranged, will externalize what they imply. For the potency of every imaginal act is in its implication. What do you imply? Although he was paying that higher rent, the implication was he was imagining that ideal rent. So it must be. That landlord had no choice. That manager had no choice but to go to him and retroactively reduce it. Right? That's powerful. Everything is on time. It's perfectly unfolding. There's no deadline or time crunch. It's on time. It's timeless. That's powerful. And then the other example was the one I was just talking about. right? This is that creator who was behind. She said, I'm behind. I'm not focused and organized. I want to get it done on time. She wanted to get this project done on time. She was going to go on a business trip. But she was in the reality, in this now moment, creating the idea that it's not done, that it's not done. But she shifted. She decided, okay, I'm going to imagine that I always get it done. I will get it done. I always get it done. It's already done. It always works out for me. I always get everything done on time. That's what her imaginal act is. She imagined those future frames, right? And in that now moment, she gets up the next morning to work on it from the assumption, hear this is powerful, that I always manifest everything on time. She opened up the file to discover she had already did it months ago. It wasn't there. Where did that come from? No recollection of ever doing it, right? She moved mountains and mulberry trees, right? She had the faith of a mustard seed, right? Moved to that reality in the here and now, because remember, that present frame is in all possibilities. Reshaped, rearranged the frames of reality around that now moment. Rearrange these frames so that it's done, it's done, it's done. 9 months ago it was done, and it's always done. Move these frames, rearrange them to it's done. It's done then, it's done now, and it will always be done. Wow. Right? That's the presentation it was the exact presentation that she needed. That's powerful. That's what we mean by manifesting on a time crunch or on a deadline. It's the idea that I'm always manifesting on time. It's timeless. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, thank you. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for liking and sharing and commenting on the videos. Thank you for being part of our Facebook group, The Ambassadors, at facebook.com/groups/Be Something Wonderful, for joining us on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Kearin, TikTok at Be Something Wonderful, and our membership channel. We will be announcing that new live stream event on the membership channel. It will be this month for sure. It's going to come out. We're working on it, and new content also for the membership channel. So stay tuned. If you're a member, join us. If you're not a member, check out the link below. Creators with great love, with great light and infinite gratitude. This is Tom Kearin here in the studios of Be Something Wonderful. Until next time, we'll see you soon.